Okay, we're still live. Apple and peanut butter. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Diet myths. Not even going to go into all these various different diets. I'll keep it really simple with this one. I won't spend too much time on this one. Really quite simple. If you've ever lost weight, regardless of how you've done it, I'll tell you now, you lost it fundamentally through calorie deficit. Is anybody hearing any feedback? Okay. So yeah, if you've ever lost it, it's been through calorie deficit. It's really that simple. Calorie deficit. It's all about energy in versus energy out. What else did I want to talk to you guys? Fakeaways. Let's move on because I want to talk about the other two topics. Tonight, I'm trying to keep it short, sweet, snappy for you guys. So, takeaways. Takeaways are a really big deal, aren't they? How many people here have been having takeaways? Coming to week 2 of lockdown? How many takeaways have you had? Anybody, please share. How many takeaways have you had this lockdown? Few takeaways. See, for a lot of people, what's happening is, takeaways apparently have just gone up, and I think it's a lot to do with, again, boredom or just generally speaking being fed up. With takeaways, I want to share a few here with you guys because there's no reason why you can't have takeaways. You actually can. As part of a healthy diet, you can actually have takeaways. You can. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I know, in my industry, sometimes you're like, no takeaways whatsoever. No, you can have takeaways. So somebody's having 1 or 2 takeaways. You know what? That's absolutely fine. Let's remember, guys, food is a very big part of society. It brings us together. There is no reason why we should never be getting involved in food. If you think about your first date, you probably were taken out for dinner or for a drink. If you think about birthdays, food. It's always a lovely little spread, isn't it? Death, food. Celebrations, food. Food and drink is a big part of our culture, and for that reason, we shouldn't really restrict ourselves. The key is to be wise about how and the choices that we're making in terms of that food we're consuming. So let's keep with these takeaways. Anybody give me an example? What's your favorite cuisine? Anybody? Just throw any cuisine at me, and I'll show you how we can try to actually make sure that we're making a smarter choice when it comes to that takeaway. Anybody want to share what their favorite takeaway is? Fish and chips. Let's just go fish and chips, right? Fish and chip Friday. So when you are going, you can still have fish and chips, but number one, you want to be doing things like either taking the batter off or don't opt for the one that's battered. That's one way to make it a bit healthier. The chips, we all know, we talked about portion sizing. Fish, right? We all know a portion of chips tends to usually be way too much for what we should be having. Try and avoid the pies and things like that. What else? You can also have a fakeaway fish and chip style. I mentioned yesterday you can get a bit of battered cod frozen, do that in the oven straight away. It's been cooked in a better way than being deep fat fried, and then you can make your own chips at home. Air fryers, I highly recommend an air fryer if you like things crispy and sort of that fatty style type of food, wings, all of that. Get yourself an air fryer. They average about £25, really great. 1 teaspoon of oil and the food comes out amazingly crispy. Personally actually tried on. I'm not just giving you a random recommendation here. Get yourself an air fryer. Air fryer is amazing. So you can do your chips in the air fryer, and then you can wrap that up in some newspaper, serve it up to your guests. Feels like it's a bit of a fakeaway. It's a different way of serving it up as well, right? Say for example, if you like Chinese. Now with Chinese, you want to be avoiding, I tried a vegan, 7-day vegan challenge, and we actually did get Chinese, which was really interesting for me because there was actually some really decent options there. So if you like Chinese takeaway, you can definitely have that, but you want to be avoiding things that are crispy, for example. So spring rolls, prawn crackers, sweet and sour dishes, sorry to say, but you want to be avoiding those. And then you want to be opting for the steamed dishes, so go for the stir fries. They tend to be low in fat, high in vegetables. They'll be a great one to have. And then try things like the steamed veg, for example, as a side. Remember, we talked about the weight loss plate, fish size for your carbs, so don't go crazy on the rice. Remember, when you think about Indian takeaways, all of that, they go crazy with the rice, don't they? But you'll be lucky to get 2 or 3 bits of meat in that sweet sauce. So you want to be careful with that. And then if you're going for, say, Italian, if you like pizza, always go for the thin crust. Some of these pizzas are like on steroids nowadays. They'll be stuffed with sausages and different types of cheeses and all of that. We're talking about smart ways to have takeaways here. You want to be going for thin base, low fat toppings. You want to be going for tomato base as well, sauce wise. And then, just, with the desserts as well. Go easy on that. And I think fakeaways. One of my clients, actually, we talked about how you can actually have a theme when it comes to takeaways, where you can have fakeaways, do your own version at home. We get 4 weeks in a month. You could actually choose one type of cuisine for each month. Everybody in the house can get involved and you can try something different. One day you could have Indian. One day, you could have, Turkish style if you like kebabs and all of that. And then you can have Chinese. And also you can go one step further and actually dress up. Dress up for the theme of the country that you're eating, if that makes sense. So if it's Thai, I saw a friend of mine, they dressed up Thai style whilst they were cooking. It's really different. I like that one. So that would be takeaways and fakeaways. That's a great way to make sure in terms of this lockdown that you're not putting on that extra weight. Just making more conscious decisions as to the type of food that you're going to be having. Because remember, we just talked about how food is a big part of culture and there's no need to take it away from yourself now. Now, before I move on, I'm just going to check to see if there's any questions so far. Any questions, anybody? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we've talked about weight management and nutrition. First and foremost, meal plan. Make sure you're planning ahead in advance because that will cover your back in terms of making sure that... Let's have a look here. Oh, substitutes for cheesesteak. So you like a bit of steak and cheese. Ooh, that's a really difficult one. Well, first of all, you want to make sure you're not having that steak too often. And secondly, I would say the cheese that you're opting for. Generally speaking with cheese, go for a stronger cheese and then that means you can actually have more flavor, but you can actually add less. That's really the trick to it. Even if you're talking about grating it, go for like a Parmesan, for example. I always use the nutmeg side of the grater because then you get the illusion of volume, but yet you're actually having less. So I think that's a really, really great one, I would say. What are the obesity numbers like in Asia? Are you talking about the Asian population as a whole or just generally speaking in Asia? Because what you find is with obesity, with the Asian side of the region, it depends which side you mean. But it's similar with sort of Afro-Caribbean backgrounds. It's a lot to do with the type of way the foods are cooked, you see. It tends to be very much deep fat fried and things like that. That's usually what the real issue is. And even in the more parts that you'd expect obesity not to be so bad. I know, for example, a couple of studies talked about, China. There's the China study, actually. And also places like Thailand, whereby it's a lot to do with, them trying to adopt the Western way of eating. So you get I was in Thailand and we went to one of the McDonald's there. Crazy, completely different type of takeaway. But they're trying to adopt the Western way of eating, unfortunately, which then means things are pretty much changing. And yes, there might not be a lot of dairy within their products, but like I said, it's a lot to do with the way they're cooking their food to start with, the deep fat fried, etc., and also trying to adopt the Western way of eating. That seems to be really the bigger issue when it comes to Asian sort of diets. But in the same breath, flip it the other way, the more traditional way of eating in terms of the Eastern region can tend to be better. A lot of the studies were done around Japan, for example, the high fish consumption. India, for example, because of the spices, they have less incident of Alzheimer's, less inflammatory diseases as well, due to things like high turmeric within their diet as well. As we can learn a lot. This is why in the West now turmeric is such a very popular supplement, and you can see the difference. You don't really get many people, in Asia on a little scooter wheelie chair because the rates of inflammation in relation to arthritis and things like that are much lower. Again, you mentioned the lactose, but I digress. So we've done nutrition for weight management. Let's talk about nutrition for immunity very quickly because we are coming into the winter season And I know for a lot of people as well, the state might not be mentioning this, but if we talk about any virus, we're talking about your immunity fundamentally. Caveat here, I'm not saying eating better is going to protect you from COVID. That's not what I said at all. But I know one thing for a fact. Support your body by supporting its defensive mechanism system, which is your immunity. You have a better fighting chance of anything, full stop. And when it comes to immunity, let's remember, first and foremost, stress. Stress will actually hamper the immune system. There's a direct relationship there, you see. Everybody's stressed, lockdown. This is all about lockdown, health and well-being. People are stressed, furloughed, they're worried. Bojo is giving us mixed signals as to whether you can go out or you can't go out, you can do this or you can't do that. That's stress. And just thinking about the job insecurity, if you think about as well, depression, suicide rates have gone up exponentially as well. All of this is actually connected to your immune system. And if we bring it back to weight management, for example, stress increases cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. That stress hormone goes up the roof, goes crazy. It hampers the way your insulin's working. And then guess what happens? You start to store it around the waist. That's what happens. You start to store it around the waist, which is really difficult to shift for a lot of people. So in terms of our immunity, the common sort of vitamins, minerals you want to be thinking about: zinc, selenium, iron. And in terms of what foods you want to be having, you want to be incorporating more citrus fruits. Definitely, we all know about that. But there's a nice concoction that I found actually that I've tried. And it's a shot a day. You can add it to a smoothie or something like that. And this includes ginger. It includes cayenne pepper. And it includes red onion. You blend that up. And then you get a little thick solution. And then you just add a tiny bit of water to that. That's a great immune booster. Doesn't taste nice, but it definitely does the trick. I can promise you that. And now fermented foods. Fermented foods are really great as well for boosting immune system. Very underrated. Things like sauerkraut, which is fermented cabbage from Germany. Kimchi, which is also a fermented cabbage, but with spices, South Korean. You also get kefir. Kefir is like a fermented dairy drink. It's got a little fizz to it. It's like yogurt with a fizz. It's a really great one if you like dairy. What else? It's a lot of fermented foods, but the reason why I'm talking about this is because when it comes to immunity, fact, did you know 70% of your immune system is actually found within your gut? 70% is found within your gut. This is why, look after your gut will look after you, as they say. And fermented foods help to boost that. For those who may not like any of those fermented foods that I mentioned, because some of them are quite, kombucha. That's another one. It's a fermented tea. Kombucha is awesome. I know in a high life sometimes, for those who may not be drinking alcohol, kombucha is a really nice alternative to champagne or prosecco. You can have that instead. But I like kombucha. It's relatively cheap. It's fermented tea basically. I think it tastes. It's an acquired taste. Anything fermented, of course, is going to have that sour-like taste to it. But kombucha is a really great one. And if you love fizzy drinks as well, that's a really great alternative to fizzy drinks. So if you're trying to kick the fizz, I would go for a kombucha. But all of these fermented foods, they pretty much boost your immune system. That's what they do. How do they do that? By boosting your gut flora. And if you don't like any fermented foods or drinks, I would then opt for, I would say, a probiotic. You want to go for a high strain, multiple strain count as well. If you're in the UK, Optibac, everyday one, simple, straightforward, great one to opt for. And in terms of immunity, I would say, again, it's all related to stress as well, isn't it? So zinc, selenium, iron as well, really great to have those. So other foods you can be incorporating there will be things like nuts, seeds. They're quite high in zinc. Somebody mentioned the steak earlier. So, you're getting your iron there, which is really great. And you want to be looking after your immunity. Another one as well, actually, somebody asked me about this yesterday. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is another very underrated supplement when it comes to boosting your immunity, boosting your mental health all round. See, I mentioned this in the first lockdown. I said to everybody, you want to be getting your vitamin D supplements because, lockdown, everybody's shielding, staying indoors, not going out enough. You're not getting enough vitamin D, especially if you live in the UK. We don't get enough anyway. And then when you add to that, people of colour, you need more vitamin D. And the actual recommendations are usually 400 to 800 IU, international units. I personally say you want to be going 2 to 4,000. 2 to 4,000, that's right. And again, if anybody wants any recommendations, slide into my DMs and I'll send you an Amazon link for a specific one. Liquid vitamin D is usually better because you drop straight underneath the tongue, absorbs much quicker, more effective. Really that simple. And as soon as you get any sunshine out there, just go and 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a nice, great top up. It is. So vitamin D, I would say, is another great one to really try and incorporate in terms of this lockdown, health and well-being. We've just changed season as well, haven't we? So, a lot of people get sad. And I mean, the disease and the seasonal affective disorder, a lot of people get sad, and yes, you can get the lights and all of that, but I would say get yourself some vitamin D drops. Nature's Answer do a really great brand, tiny little bottle, and it's literally like a drop, literally a drop, 2 drops underneath the tongue. Me and my children, we take that, works wonders. So I'd say that would be another great one to have. Got a question. Let's start with the top one. See, I'm not actually a big fan of all-in-one like multivitamins, if I'm honest. I'm really not. I'll tell you why. Because it's like a shot in the dark. You don't actually know specifically which one you need. So technically speaking, you're actually paying for a bit of an expensive piece, the way I see it. I think when it comes to supplements, you want to be targeted specifically. What am I working on? I'll give you my top 2 free supplements as well. I personally would say you want to be taking. But the A to Z all-in-ones, I think logically they're a bit of a shot in the dark, really, aren't they? I think if you're trying to plug any nutritional deficiencies or any gaps, be more targeted. Personally, I believe that you want to be having an omega-3, not cod liver oil, omega-3, high strength omega-3, and it has to be 2,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. If you look on the back of your bottle, jot this down, 2,000, not the total fish oil, but the EPA and the DHA, 2,000. That's what studies state is actually what will get you that therapeutic benefit. Because with an omega-3, it works as it's anti-inflammatory. It switches off those inflammatory pathways. It's great for your brain. It's great for your eye health. Works wonders for the skin. So that in itself, that sounds like a multivitamin, doesn't it? So I would say high strength omega-3, and if you're vegan, vegetarian, you can get the plant-based version as well, flaxseed oil. That's a great one to have. And then number 2, I would say you want vitamin D, and then finally, I would say a probiotic. Those are my top 3 supplements. That is pretty much all you need in the cupboard. I promise you. Those 3, they cover all bases, I would say. But 9 times out of 10, like I said, the multivit, you're probably getting a lot of it from your diet, I would imagine. And like I said, don't want to be paying for an expensive pea now, do we? Is the way I see it. Vitamin D, yep, it does help with skin. Now, in terms of kilos, not too sure. I'll get back to you on that one. I'm not going to pretend I know. I'll get back to you on that one. So yeah, we've established top 3 supplements. Top 3 supplements. That would be your omega-3, be it plant-based or fish, vitamin D, and a good probiotic. Now, all of that you can obviously get from food. Mushrooms actually tend to be quite a good source of vitamin D, did you know? Chestnut mushrooms in particular, really great source. And obviously probiotics, we talked about our fermented foods, and of course omega-3. We did say fish, but if you're going to be going for the fish, not the cods and all of that, you want to be going for oily fish. The oilier the better, basically. Your salmon, your kippers, your mackerels, your sardines. Great snack, can of sardines. Toast. Beautiful. What did I have this morning? I had on sourdough rye bread, avocado with some anchovies. That went down the tree. The vegan thing, we're done with that now, ish. Okay, so I digressed. Let me finish off on tying it all together. So we talked about nutrition for immunity. Let's bring in immunity for mental health now. Foods can actually make you happy. Food for mood. That's a thing. And I'm not talking about binge eating on chocolate and Ben and Jerry's ice cream because you're feeling a bit sad. That doesn't make you happy. That distracts you. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. That distracts you. It doesn't make you happy. There is actually foods that are known to make you happy. We just touched on them a second ago. Omega-3s. Omega-3s are a lot to do with the brain. Your brain is made up of 70% fat. So naturally, you want to be giving it back what? More good fat. Coincidentally, your body is made up of 70% water, which is why you want to make sure you're staying really hydrated. Interesting comparison there, isn't it? So omega-3s, fish, nuts and seeds, so underrated, especially as snacks. You want to be having more of those. They will literally look after your brain. Dark leafy greens as well, absolutely awesome, because again, with this lockdown, your mental health is something that will probably be compromised. 100%. Nobody's immune to this. Even myself, I saw this lockdown as a great opportunity to, set some goals, do some more things. I'm working on different type of exercise journey at the moment, etc. But your mental health can actually be affected by the type of nutrition. There's, as much as there's foods that actually help you mood, there's foods that will hamper your mentality as well. So a lot of the processed foods, we talked about snacks, didn't we? You want to make sure you're having good snacks because that's what will keep your brain more on point, if you like. You want to be watching things like alcohol. So somebody asked about alcohol. Yeah, it's very easy to, like I said, in the last lockdown, I talked about how a lot of people's relationship with alcohol, is your drinking pattern normal? Do not slip into that pattern once again. It's very easy to do that. And I think getting into some good habits will probably be key with that one. I talked at the very beginning about triggers. Know your triggers. So if you know that I get bored on a Friday night and then I get tempted by a glass, then put something in place for... I've started going to gym on a Friday evening, would you believe? That's what I'm doing because I know, hey, if I stay at home, So you got to find something. You got to replace your trigger. Know your trigger and find something to replace it with so you don't get caught. Remember, this is about trying to learn lessons from the first lockdown that we can apply to this lockdown so we don't end up caught in the same position again. That is the key here. And gut health as well is going to be really connected to our mental health in terms of this lockdown. Look after your gut and your gut will look after you. You see, because again, a lot of those feel-good hormones actually tend to be made within the gut. So naturally, if you look after the gut, it will look after you. Hunger pangs before. I'm guessing you're talking about hunger pangs, generally speaking, when you're dieting. See, with that one, there's two things, if I've got the question correctly there. It's to do with satiety. You want to be making sure you're dealing with satiety. And there's two things that will deal with satiety. Fiber and protein. Fiber works, here's an example of the way fiber works, right? If I've got some porridge oats, just plain porridge, mixed it with milk, and then poured it through a sieve, what would happen? Not a trick question. The milk would run straight through, wouldn't it? Now let's cook that porridge, it becomes thick gloopy. Put that in the sieve, what would happen? It wouldn't go out as quickly. And think about the sieve as the emptying of your stomach, basically. And fiber, a lot of these diet drinks, they tend to actually have fiber as a base because it swells up, expands in your stomach. Remember, your gut communicates with your brain, doesn't it? Your gut communicates with your brain. And normally, hunger pangs before bed. Well, it depends what kind of hunger pangs. Are they? Well, then, what you want to be assessing then is your eating pattern. It goes back to the first topic we talked about, your meal plan, your meal routine. What time was the last meal that you had? And what were the portion sizes within that meal? So it does still actually connect with what I said regarding satiety. Did you last have your meal at 6 o'clock? Then maybe you need to be having a snack a couple hours later, but not a biscuit or a chocolate, something a little bit more balanced, something with a bit more fiber to actually help keep you fuller for longer. That's what I would be recommending. First of all, one, for everybody who may be watching this in relation to weight management, etc., keep a food diary. Slide into my DMs, I'll give you a diary for you. Keep a food diary so you can actually observe how you're eating. But without digressing, hunger pangs are a lot to do with when did you last have your last meal and what were the portion sizes like in relation to that meal. That's what you want to be really looking at and addressing. And a lot of the time, that's probably a lot to do with frequency of eating. Remember, if you start eating late, it's got a knock-on impact on how you're going to be eating for the rest of the day as well. We want to be eating small and frequent. That is the key. Think about if I had a fire, one that I'm feeding small pieces of kindling or one that I throw on a big log. Which fire burns more effectively? It would be the one I feed small pieces of kindling. And a lot of the time, if you're having sort of hunger pains, I would imagine the eating frequency and pattern is probably irregular. So that's what we want to be addressing, is what I would say. I hope that answered your question-ish. Any more questions? Any questions? I wasn't trying to keep everybody too long. What else was I talking about? Yeah, mental health and nutrition. So yeah, I think those are the three things. In terms of this lockdown, you want to be watching weight management and your nutrition. You want to be watching your immunity, and you want to be watching your mental health. I think if you address that triad, if you like, with good habits, good routines, we're talking about sleep hygiene. I said about this yesterday. The bedroom is only for two things only, people. Doing the business and going to sleep. There's no place for watching TV till 2 a.m. Knock-on impact. You wake up later and then get those issues. Great morning routine. Make sure you're eating breakfast. Breakfast is not essential for everybody, but it definitely helps to get you into a good pattern of eating, good habits. It's really important for that. Technology fasting in this lockdown as well, I think is going to be really important for everybody. If we're talking lockdown, health and well-being, I think that would be really, really important to watch. Let's have a look here. We have a comment. And then, exercise. Get moving around. I think it's important to move around. Move around. It's really important. It's really, really important. But, so let me just... so we talked about lockdown, health and well-being. This lockdown as well, I think is going to be really important for everybody. We're talking lockdown, health and well-being. Hi, Sandra. I see you. How you doing? So we talked about health and well-being for lockdown, and we focused on weight management particularly. I think that's probably the area of concern for a lot of people, because that has a knock-on impact on so many other things, especially if you're diabetic, type 2, for example. So weight management tips for you for this lockdown. Plan ahead. Make sure you got a meal plan. Think about what you're going to be having and stick to the script. Make sure you're shopping smart. Portion size. Use the hand-eye method. Fist, palm, half a plate of veg. You're only going to drop weight with calorie deficit. That's it. Anything else is just made up. I'll be honest with you. Be it Atkins, be it whatever, it got you to lose weight because of calorie deficit. Takeaways. You can still have a takeaway, but be smart about the options that you pick. Top 5 snacks: popcorn, rice cakes, average piece of fruit, natural yogurt, apple and peanut butter. Really great one. In terms of immunity, we talked about nutrition for immunity. I said about stress. We want to be watching our stress. Stress is related to cortisol. We want to be managing that. And there's certain foods that will help to boost our immunity. We're talking about zinc, selenium, iron. Really great for actually boosting our immunity. And fermented foods. Fermented foods are really great for focusing on actually boosting our gut flora. Remember, we talked about how 70% of our immune system is actually found in our gut. Look after your gut will look after you. And then a little concoction for immune boosting. Ginger, little knob of ginger, half a teaspoon of pepper, half a red onion. Blend that bad boy with a squeeze of lemon in there. And then keep that. And then you can mix that with a bit of water. Shot a day. Mix it up with warm water, for example. Great immune booster, naturally as well. And then we talked about our mental health in terms of nutrition. Supplements recommended. Let's have a look. Cravings. See, rather than... See, that to me suggests that there's a craving there specifically because there's a deficiency in something. That's why. Really, with cravings, I always say it's more, what are you actually missing? And by the looks of it there, you're more of a savory kind of person, aren't you? If you're looking for raw mango and salt. Is it good for you? It's not bad for you. I'm more interested in what's missing within the diet for you to be craving that in the first place. That's what you want to be really, really addressing. And more importantly, what I've actually observed is a lot of the time, cravings are actually out of boredom more than anything. That's actually really what it is. It's usually out of boredom. Whether you're craving something sweet or sour, it's usually out of boredom. Watch the routine, watch what you're having, and you'll be surprised. If your satiety is full, it's generally optimal and you're not hungry, etc., you shouldn't really have cravings unless you're extremely deficient in something, and that's another story. That's where, a diagnostic test of some blood, which I do offer, by the way. I do diagnostic testing. We can check your bloods for you. That's not a problem at all. See, if you end up eating late, that's a really difficult one, because I can appreciate a lot of the time people are working late, and it's not always as easy to stick to a routine. This is where I would say, your routine, so you need to adjust accordingly. And I'm a big advocate of taking things out with you. So for example, if you know you're going to get home late, it's either one, you prepare something half decent so that when you come in, you're just heating that up and it's quite healthy for you. Or alternatively, you take snacks with you. Take something with you. Yeah, I highly discourage you to eat 30 minutes before bed. This is a concoction that makes it very suitable for you to end up with acid reflux and things like that, which is just not cool. I would say in that instance, rather you take some sort of snacks and then you end up having something smaller. If you're going to really have to eat 30 minutes before bed, you want to make sure that it's something small, is what I would personally suggest. But do not have, in all honesty, rather you go sleep late than you have something 30 minutes before. In an ideal world, we want to make sure that we're allowing at least 2 hours before we go to bed in terms of actually eating something, just to allow you to digest. Yeah, nah, I'm gonna come back to the salt snacks one. Yeah, eating itis, I'm hearing here. Eating late helps you fall asleep. That's because you've gone into excess with the carbs. If anything, that's like you're playing with your blood sugar. That's actually a recipe for disaster in relation to actually type 2 diabetes, if I'm honest. It is. If you're having problems with sleep, that's a whole nother conversation that we can address there. Things like lavender, like I said, magnesium as well. Take a magnesium salt. I also, at the moment, I'm in the business of offering I'm doing Himalayan pink salt baths infused in essential oil. Get at me. And there's a great blend that I do. It actually contains it contains actual fresh lavender and Mei Chang and lavender essential drops within it. Great for sleep. It works wonders. But we can't be using food and extreme satiety as a way of us to get to sleep. Don't be doing that. That's, like I said, a recipe for disaster completely. And then what did somebody else ask? I mean, in terms of salty, remember again, I don't like diets and things like that. If you want something, let yourself have it, but make sure that it's in moderation. So if you like salty, for example, then by all means, have, tiny amount of snacks. That's okay. Just don't go overboard with that. And remember to stay hydrated with that as well. Is what I'd say to that question, if that's of any help to anybody. But we've got 7 more minutes. Come on, guys. What questions have you got for me? You got access to a nutritionist for free. For free. Take advantage of this. But I genuinely hope that people have taken something away from this. My mission was to share some tools and skills that you can use practically as soon as you get off this, in relation to helping you with your health and your well-being in this lockdown, in relation to weight management, in relation to your mental health, and in relation to your immunity. I think it's really important that we're resilient with all of this. So if you have a look at the notes, I put a few sections that we covered. If there's a particular section that was of interest to you and you want more information, or you want to have a conversation off the screen, slide into my DMs. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. I can give you a list of snacks if you like. I can also make sure, I give you resources if you need. So if you want to be keeping a food plan, for example, I've got something prepared that I can share with you just to help you add structure. Or even if you're just looking for accountability, I'm more than happy to support and, give you that guidance if you like, because I think sometimes I find accountability is really, really helpful. But we have to look after our health, guys. You're nothing without your health. Absolutely nothing without your health. And you will pay for it. You either pay now with your time and investing in yourself, or you'll pay later with your health. One way or another, you will pay for it. And rather be in control of it than be forced to have to deal with it later on. So, just to wrap it up, guys, today we talked about nutrition for weight management, nutrition for mental health, and nutrition for immunity, the triad as I call it. And within all of that, we can incorporate some really good habits in relation to our sleep, in relation to our morning routine, technology fasting, as well as exercise. There will be, I'm going to add a link on there for anybody who might want to get in touch. Skipping breakfast. Woohoo. Okay. Breakfast is not as essential as it's made out to be, but if you're trying to get into some good habits, you want to be having breakfast. It's not ideal to skip breakfast because what happens is then you end up compensating. So I'll give you an example. Some people will think eating 2 meals is ideal for helping to lose weight. You have no appetite in the morning. That's understandable. I imagine you're probably a smoker. That usually happens. If you have no appetite, then it might just be a matter of having something small. Just have something small. And personally, I like a smoothie. Smoothies are really great because it's easy. You get it down you quick, go. And with smoothies, I always recommend 2 to 3 pieces of fruit, and then also have some spinach in there, so you're getting veg, so that there's not too much sugar in there. And if you're that way inclined, add a scoop of protein powder in there. That's a really great one. Personally, I'm not a big fan of breakfast myself either because I'm usually time pressed more than anything, and that's where I find the smoothie really handy. And also, it is about getting into the habit. You might not feel like you want to do it, but just think about the benefits, is what I would say. I know it's you, CEO. I'm trying to keep it professional here, you see. No, of course. I mean, hey, listen, I don't like to make assumptions. You may have made some changes in your life and you stopped smoking like me. I don't know. I don't like to make assumptions. But yes, I see you. Shout out to my favorite uncle. I see you. But yeah, no, I would say I'm skipping breakfast. It's not really ideal if you're trying to get into some good habits. You want to make sure that you are having it so that you can get. Remember, let's go back to the example of the fire. I have 2 fires. One, I feed small pieces of kindling, and one big log. Which fire burns better? The one I'm feeding the small pieces of kindling. And skipping breakfast kind of works in the same way, and you're shifting everything later, which is probably why you end up having that big dinner, because your whole eating pattern has been shifted. We want to shift your eating pattern back. That's ideally what we want to do. And I gave you a tip there. Opt for a smoothie. It's easy, just get that down you. And at least you are getting that goodness in you. And smoothies are a great way of making sure you get your 5 a day as well. They are, I would say. Let's have a look before I disappear. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? I think I answered everybody's questions so far, right? Hangover cures. I actually did a post on this. One, you can't actually cure a hangover, but you can have a hangover comforter. And it's a lot to do with what you do before and after you drink. Ideally, do like the models do. High protein before you start drinking. That usually helps make a difference, hence people talk about lining the stomach. And usually what you find is you want something like B vitamins. B vitamins are really great for actually addressing a hangover. High protein B vitamins. What else off the top of my head? I'll forward you the article that I did on hangover cures. But that's why everybody loves a bit of Barocca, because when you're hungover, you go into the toilet a lot, so you're depleting yourself of a lot of essential vitamins and minerals, and it's about replacing those. But how you start, what you do during and what you do after is very much key to dealing with that hangover, I would say. But I'll make sure I send you that specific article dedicated to you in relation to hangover comforters, as I like to call them. But yeah, okay, so that's me done, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure all you good people have other things to do. Please feel free to slide into my DMs, get in touch with me. I'm here to support you guys and help you with your lockdown health and well-being. But you've all been a great audience. My name is Genesis, the nutritionist. It was a blast, guys. Have a great evening. Thank you. Goodbye.